Okay, so here are the changes and my thoughts on them. So, now I have far more playtesters than I had before. Most of the game direction was moved only by myself or a few scattered people, uh, and only a select few of the cards had ever really had the opportunity to be tested. I'd be able to play a game every other week, and it was just a lot of fan favorites, stuff like that. And now that I have like 6 or 7 people playing 3 games at a time, 2 days a week, I can see more than I could have. This raised some issues when we saw certain interactions. So imagine a scenario. You have a monster with 4 attack, 2 HP, 4 speed, and it's fighting a 2 attack, 3 HP, 3 speed monster. It's instantly obvious that the first monster will win, has bigger speed, attack is bigger than its HP. Cool, you look at 3 things basically. This is what I saw a lot with decks that I tested with other monsters, with other people when we only had a few people, and it always turned out kind of that easy. But it turned out this was the outlier scenario. So I would go over to a table and ask what turn what turn they were on, and be like 5, 7, 8, etc. And then I'd ask, well, how many times have you guys fought each other? Never, almost every single time. The reason was this. Imagine you have a monster that's a 2-3-2, and they have one that's a 2-5-1. Okay, so your brain does some quick math. It's not quite as easy, but yeah, it's pretty easy because the monsters are going to have to hit each other more than once. Now, the more that HP scales, with either some form of equipment or anything, that's going to be more math per encounter, where you're just like, okay, they're going to have to hit each other 4 times, then this happens. Okay, cool, I should be able to win. But that's still, it's a lot, especially when you start looking at teams that look more like this. So, this is their team. They have 5-5-2, 2-4-4, etc. All these numbers, and that's so. If it was just like a couple monsters, you're like, yeah, I can kind of figure out. Cool, I have type speed. I'll be able to beat that guy, and then he can beat that guy. Yeah, whatever. Cool. But that's not what it looks like. You have to calculate all these dudes, all their dudes, and try to figure out how is this going to work out. And it's not readily obvious, so people are they become paralyzed by the amount of information. It's just too much. Now, if it were less monsters or something, it gets more simple. We'll get into that in a minute. Yeah, and everyone was still enjoying their favorite aspect, which was capturing monsters and screwing over their opponents with invasive monsters, but they just didn't fight at all. So things I'm thinking about. Adding a more point-and-click aspect of attack, the multiplayer kind of battle thing that we had talked about kind of comes in here. You can attack any of that player's monsters, no switching, none of that, just... so if we're looking at the new combat system, we'll just give an example of that real fast. So it's going to be my 4, his 3, so I'm going to beat that one. He goes down to that one. I'm going to beat that one. This, not a fair example, but so this dude would just beat the shit out of this one. But if this one had any abilities, I was thinking, oh, it'll have an ability that activates at the 2nd level, because maybe it's a monster that, doesn't take things seriously. Like maybe a Djinn would be something that, because it's a big lovable puppy, you kind of got to piss it off first. So you can kind of add personality through the tiers of exhaustion. Like here's another one. So a 2 and a 2, they would tie, so they would both go over to their next level. 3 to 1, so he's going to beat that one. So he moves over to his 5, then the 5 is going to beat his 3, and then beat his 3 again. So then you're just like, oh, well, yep, he's gone. That guy won. But then, if you wanted to continue the fight, there you go. I have a 5 now. And it's just very simple. You just go down the rows, type advantage, just a +1 to whatever if you have type advantage. Like I said, I can add abilities that go off at different levels. Different monsters will be, like I said, that you can give a lot of personality just through 3 numbers and their placement, honestly. So I'm looking at more like a point-and-click style of attack where you can attack any of that player's monsters. No switching or any of that. You just go down the exhaustion levels and see who wins the fight. The loser can choose to send out a new monster or run, and they have to sacrifice some life. This is going to be important because most everyone wished that defeated monsters just went to the graveyard. I actually would have given, an incentive to fight. I can just pick that guy and fight him and just knock it out, and he loses something and he loses life. Yeah, cool. I'll do that. That's easy. But that wasn't the thing. It was like, all right, here's everything versus everything. It was a lot to calculate, and it was tough. So I can probably do this with the old, battle and stat system we were already using. My goal is to test both in tandem. Have one group playing one version and the other. Just the way to look at the stats, and then just see which one people prefer. Have them switch off, and we haven't. This isn't anything that's like scrapped or anything. It's all still here. It just needs to be looked at, basically. Although I did, I loved the new system idea personally. Um, so, a more next level thing that I had thought about that makes it to where, because like right now it's like, oh, in Magic or other card games, it's pretty easy. Now it's just like those. It's like I attack your monster with my monster, and then blah, you lose life. That kind of detracts from the uniqueness to a degree. So, the thing that people enjoyed most, I noticed, it's just like with actual Monster Crown. I'm always wanting convoluted, competitive battles, and everybody's like, oh yeah, I just like catching monsters in the story. It's pretty cool. So, it's the exact same thing, which is one of the reasons I kind of wanted to simplify the combat, because everybody was having enough fun in the main phase, honestly. Um, so, I figured that, I really wanted to do something that leaned into the actual RPG feel that I wanted to emulate with the game in the first place. So when you choose to fight your opponent, you can ambush them, which is what we were just talking about. You pick one of their monsters, attack it, and, you're basically just like, I'm going to kill that one. Easy. However, that marks you, and I'll get into what that does in just a second. Or, instead of ambushing them, you can challenge an opponent where you pick, like, 2 or 3 of your monsters. It's far less math, and then they pick, their team, and then you guys clash. It's a more civilized fight, functionally. And the losing as the attacker doesn't cost you any life, so it incentivizes them to just go to town, and no one's monsters die, because it's more of, like I said, it's not back alley, it's not attacking somebody, on a mountain pass, any of that kind of stuff. It's not, Beth using Bant to attack somebody. It's, oh yeah, let's have a little fight. So basically, you can be like a legal or illegal monster tamer, which helps a lot for like future sets where I wanted to do things around like Beth and David, and kind of have like a good and bad option. And I'll make cards that only work when you're marked. So like, after you ambush, it's like, oh cool, now you can, you're bad guy charged, so you can, use more devious cards and stuff like that. Kind of let you be like, oh cool, I get to play as the villain? Hell yeah, that's cool. And then it sets a natural dynamic between you and the other player immediately. And then you can have things that only work whenever you don't have a mark. And there can be all kinds of adventure cards and stuff that can alter these statuses and do all kinds of things and empower, based on kind of the moral path that you're taking. And it really lets people just play the way they want it, the way they want to, and they have that self-representation, which is big in most games, but it's surprisingly large in TCGs. I mean, if you just look at like, oh, I play black-blue because there's something about it that really clicks for me, I really like it, or, I don't know, maybe it's super meta and you just want to win. Either way. But that's what I wanted to go over here. That's just kind of the summary of what led us to where we are. And like I said, I think the biggest thing that needs to change is the way that you go about attacks, and limiting the number of things that people have to think about. And I will test that. I was kind of inspired when I came up with this, because it's just so different. It's more, honestly, it's more something like hero clicks or something. It's almost like a dial system, and you can do so much with that. And it has another benefit that it kind of sets me free from the actual stats of the monster that I'm dealing with. Instead of being like, oh man, I really wanted to make a Jin that was like, a 6/2/2, but I don't know, that doesn't really fit its stat levels and blah, blah, blah. Now it's just kind of like, I can do whatever, because it's not speed, it's not power, it's just various aspects of the monster that can be represented. And so that does a lot. So I can break free from certain things. I can actually make, various habitats have advantages and disadvantages, such as, oh, mountainous monsters typically have like, their first number is higher usually. They're more offensive. maybe unstable monsters will have something where on occasion, like every other unstable monster will have like a question mark where you can roll a d6 for like that particular stat. Maybe roll a d6 divided by half, something. Um, all kinds of things that I can do with that. Malicious monsters do bonus damage to monsters on like the bottom thing. There's just all kinds of stuff that you could do that allows you to make the monsters have personality that lets me separate things. It's like, oh, mountain monsters have this advantage, waterways monsters have this advantage, and people actually have reasons to branch out. And there's more, kind of adds more control, and it makes certain things specifically better, I think, and gives things roles. So these are, again, the thoughts that I have on these. I'm going to test both of them, and I think they both could be very cool, especially with just allowing people to, either use less monsters to attack, or be far more offensive and just literally kill their opponent's monsters. So, and that changes a lot of things. It adds removal, which the game presently doesn't have, and I think that's a staple. People like beating things and sending them to graveyards. They just love it. They love beating the shit out of other people's cards. So I think taking that away was possibly a mistake, because everybody just seemed to want it. From veteran TCG players to the noobs, everybody was like, yeah, I just want to be able to kill this stuff. So that's where we are with this. Please give me your guys' opinions, and I'll get to working on this.